And black people can't afford to indulge rich white people's need to endlessly flagellate themselves. They just want prices to go down and good jobs and the police when you call them.
Well, if he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class?
Stop saying that Whoopi Goldberg getting yanked from The View right after she attacked me on The View is karma. There's no such thing as karma, sorry. Sorry, but life is random. The only word to describe it when a big game hunter gets trampled by an elephant and then eaten by lions is hilarious.
Bill Maher just did what no one else on live TV dares to do. He calmly dismantled Whoopi Goldberg's entire argument, leaving her stunned and scrambling for a comeback. But the way he did it? That's what really has everyone talking. Whoopi Goldberg has built a reputation for shutting down conversations she doesn't like, cutting off guests, and making sure her opinions dominate The View. But this time, she met her match. When Bill Maher appeared on the show, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't lose his cool. He simply laid out the facts, and Whoopi had no idea how to handle it. For months, Maher has been one of the most vocal critics of extreme woke culture, calling it out for what he sees as hypocrisy and overreach. And Whoopi? She's been a loud defender of it, often shutting down anyone who dares to question the narrative. So when these two collided on national television, it was only a matter of time before sparks flew. But here's where it gets interesting. Maher didn't engage in a shouting match like so many others before him. Instead, he did something far more effective. He let Whoopi's own words trap her. Every time she tried to deflect or dismiss his arguments, he calmly countered with logic that left her struggling to respond. And then came the moment that changed everything.
And Whoopi Goldberg getting suspended by The View isn't karma, and I wouldn't want it if it was. People have to learn to disagree in this country and not hate for it. The right response to speech you don't like is more speech, not the lazy, cowardly response of canceling people. She's allowed to be wrong. It's 11 a.m. Problem in America, there is one view,
right, and
one
that's clearly
true opinion, and everybody else can go sit in the corner. Can't afford to indulge rich white people's need to endlessly flagellate themselves. They just want prices to go down and good jobs and the police when you call them.
Well, if he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class?
Whoopi Goldberg, because I got so many texts this week because she attacked me the week before.
Sure.
So everybody was like, oh, Bill, I get you're enjoying the karma. First of all, I'm going to talk about this at the end of my show next week, teaser. But there is no thing as karma, okay? Get over that. Whoopi Goldberg shouldn't have to conform to or apologize for her views on race, as much as I disagree with them. And she certainly shouldn't have to sit out like a child and think about what she did.
As the discussion heated up, Whoopi tried to shut Maher down with the usual go-to defense, claiming that questioning certain social movements meant he was just against progress. But Maher didn't take the bait. Instead, he leaned in, smirked, and delivered a response so sharp that even the audience gasped. He pointed out how modern wokeness has drifted so far from its original purpose that even lifelong liberals like himself can't recognize it anymore. He reminded Whoopi that real progress means open debate, not silencing people for having different opinions. And then came the knockout punch. He referenced times when Whoopi herself had been attacked by the very same ideology she was defending. It gets crazier, because Whoopi had no comeback. She tried to pivot, brushing off Maher's points, but it was clear she was rattled. The more she tried to regain control of the conversation, the more Maher exposed the contradictions in her arguments. And then, Maher sealed the deal with one final remark that left the entire panel stunned.
There's people who really like him. They certainly are those. And then there's people who don't necessarily like him that much, but they still think he's less crazy. Only word to describe it when a big game hunter gets trampled by an elephant and then eaten by lions is hilarious. This is a big country with lots of people who don't think like you. We all only need to agree on free speech itself. That's my religious belief. That's the timeless principle I live by. I don't like what Whoopi said about race. She didn't like what I said about COVID. So what? It's nothing.
Yeah.
And it's narrative over truth. You know,
Yes.
I mean, it's not like when I hear people talk on either side of it, I always think they're lying. They're just telling me half of it.
Yeah.
And I never trust them anywhere until I check out the other half.
Chaos, they know it.
Right.
But you know what? You know who's not making chaos? Right here. He's not.
But it struck me that in the first segment you used the term woke, and you said that woke is what was sort of ruining everything. And I know that you're...
No, I didn't say ruining everything. I said that's why Trump could get reelected.
Anything in regards to whether or not his son wanted to be pardoned. He could have said, "Hey man, I'm not focused on that right now."
Appropriate to bury the Hunter Biden.
You're talking about the press doing that?
He's saying that's what they did, and that is what they did. They buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
And we know for a fact that that's what they did?
Of course, you don't
but
follow
I'm
this.
saying
You gotta...
know for a
Maher reminded Whoopi of the time she faced massive backlash for her controversial comments about the Holocaust. Back then, she begged for people to understand nuance and context, yet now she was shutting down that exact same idea when it didn't fit her narrative. The hypocrisy was impossible to ignore. The second he brought it up, Whoopi's expression changed. She wasn't expecting her own past to be used against her, especially in front of a national audience. She fumbled, trying to redirect the conversation, but Maher wasn't letting her off the hook that easily. But here's where it gets even worse for her. Instead of arguing, Maher just let the silence do the work. And that silence, it spoke volumes. The audience knew it. The panel knew it. Even Whoopi knew it. She had been caught in her own double standard, and for once, she had no way out. And just when you thought things couldn't get more awkward, the rest of the panel started looking uncomfortable, realizing that defending Whoopi was becoming harder by the second. At first, Whoopi still had some of the audience on her side. After all, The View has built its brand on catering to a specific crowd. But as Maher kept calmly laying out his arguments, something shifted. The usual applause and agreement weren't there. Instead, there were murmurs, some uncomfortable chuckles, and even a few audible gasps. Maher wasn't yelling, he wasn't being aggressive, he was simply exposing the contradictions, and the audience felt it. And Whoopi, she felt it too. But listen to this. One audience member even dared to clap for Maher's takedown. It was just one at first, but then others joined in. The tension in the room was unbearable. Whoopi, clearly flustered, tried to regain control, but the damage was done. The shift in energy was undeniable. Even her co-hosts seemed hesitant to jump in. They knew that siding with her in this moment would only make them look bad, and the longer the silence stretched, the worse it got. Realizing she was losing ground, Whoopi attempted a classic move, playing the victim of unfair criticism card. She claimed that Maher and others like him were just obsessed with attacking progressives and that he was making a big deal out of nothing. But Maher wasn't having it. Without missing a beat, he reminded her that actual progressive voices have been silenced and attacked, not by conservatives, but by the same woke ideology she was defending. He listed names of figures who had once been darlings of the left, only to be canceled for daring to question the new rules. And here's where it gets even more humiliating. Whoopi had no answer. She just sat there, arms crossed, shaking her head, trying to look unbothered. But everyone could see it. She had lost this debate, and no amount of deflection was going to change that. Her attempt to paint herself as the victim only made things worse. Instead of sympathy, she got eye rolls. Instead of support, she got silence. The moment had slipped away from her, and there was nothing left to do but move on. As soon as the episode aired, clips of the exchange started flooding social media. And let's just say, the internet was not on Whoopi's side. Users on X, formerly Twitter, wasted no time calling out her hypocrisy. Memes started popping up, highlighting the exact moment she realized she had no comeback. Some users pointed out that Maher wasn't even being aggressive. He was just stating facts, and that alone was enough to shake Whoopi. But here's the kicker. People from both sides of the political spectrum agreed on one thing. Whoopi's argument fell apart under the slightest bit of pressure. Even some of her usual defenders were struggling to justify her stance. YouTube channels and podcasts started analyzing the moment, breaking down how Maher managed to completely dismantle her points without even raising his voice. The clip was everywhere, and the more people watched, the clearer it became. Whoopi had met her match. And just when things couldn't get any worse for her, another bombshell dropped. Just as Whoopi was trying to move past the embarrassment, the internet did what it does best, digging up receipts. Within hours, users started resurfacing clips of Whoopi contradicting herself on similar issues in the past. One clip in particular went viral, a segment from a few years ago where Whoopi had passionately defended free speech, saying that everyone had the right to express their views, even if they were unpopular. But now, here she was, attacking Maher for doing exactly that. The hypocrisy was undeniable. But it gets worse. Old interviews showed Whoopi taking the opposite stance on the very topics she was now trying to defend. People pulled up footage of her questioning cancel culture when it nearly came for her, but suddenly, when it benefited her argument, she was all for it. And the internet wasn't letting it slide. Major influencers and commentators jumped on the opportunity to highlight her inconsistencies, with one tweet racking up millions of views simply saying, "So, when it's Whoopi, cancel culture is bad, but when it's everyone else, it's accountability." Whoopi was now not just dealing with the fallout from her argument with Maher, she was facing a full-blown reputation crisis. But what happened next was even more shocking. Behind the scenes, ABC executives were not happy. The backlash wasn't just limited to social media. The View was taking a hit in credibility. Sources claimed that producers were blindsided by just how bad the optics were. The last thing ABC wanted was another controversy dragging down their network, especially after Whoopi's past suspensions and controversies. They were now scrambling to control the damage, reportedly telling Whoopi to tone it down and avoid turning every debate into a political meltdown. But listen to this. Some sources even suggested that higher-ups were considering a more drastic move. With ratings becoming more unpredictable and backlash growing, whispers of Whoopi's future on the show started making rounds. Could this be the final straw? Could Whoopi actually be on her way out? The tension was rising, and the next move could change everything. Just when things couldn't get any worse, Maher himself responded, this time on his own show. And he didn't hold back. Without even mentioning Whoopi's name, Maher addressed the controversy head-on, mocking the idea that questioning extreme wokeness was somehow an attack on progressivism. He pointed out how real liberals, like himself, were being pushed aside by a new wave of ideological extremism, and that people like Whoopi were unintentionally proving his point. And then came the final blow. He thanked Whoopi. Yes, he actually thanked her. Because, as he put it, her reaction only made it easier for people to see what was really happening. That moment sealed the deal. Maher had won. The internet knew it, the audience knew it, and deep down, even Whoopi knew it. So, what happens next? Will ABC stand by Whoopi, or is her time running out? One thing's for sure. This was one debate she definitely didn't walk away from unscathed. What do you think? Was Whoopi out of line, or did Maher take it too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the latest updates. See you in the next one.